if you're looking for a way to do massage on yourself, I'm going to show you all the different variations of tools that you can use to get the best results. My name is Dr. Story. I've been a chiropractor for over 20 years, and we deal with these things all the time, and I show patients how to do these things. So I'm going to compare and contrast with you some different products that might help you save you money so that you don't have to spend a lot on these types of things. So the first thing is, when people started using these self techniques, a lot of times they just thought they were treating muscle. And then they started advertising things that you're treating the myofascial treatment. Now it just seems it's popular just to say we're doing fascia treatment. All of these things are just variations of a theme. When it first started, people would use a tennis ball, a very simple tennis ball. And what they would do is they would roll on their quadriceps or roll on their hamstrings or their butt muscle called a piriformis, and would provide relief for a lot of people. So a tennis ball is a very useful tool, and if you're new to doing myofascial treatment or muscle treatment or self-massage on yourself, really just get a tennis ball and start experimenting and seeing if this helps you. Now, one of the problems with a tennis ball, it's very squishy. So a lot of times people, especially people that are bigger, will find that they squish down on it and it doesn't give a lot of pressure. So what's popular is to use a lacrosse ball. Now, if you're not familiar with lacrosse, it's a sport that uses this ball. When I was a kid, I never really knew even what lacrosse was, but this is a nice little tool because what ends up happening is it's very firm and it can get into places that the tennis ball will not. So if you start with a tennis ball and you find that it's just not enough pressure and you can take more pressure, you can use a lacrosse ball. People will also sometimes use a actual old-fashioned just baseball. Some people will use a softball. So these are all very inexpensive ways to go. Now, for the feet, when you're doing this on the feet, sometimes people for plantar fasciitis will try to roll on a tennis ball. They'll try to roll on a baseball or something like that. What actually works pretty good is a very simple golf ball. And so, again, a very inexpensive item. I have seen other products that are very similar to this that have more knobbies on it. They don't offer any more advantage, but a golf ball works quite well. So a company, having said this, a lot of companies have come out and advertised themselves. They have trademarks, they have a tremendous marketing plan, and they do quite well in selling their products. However, are they advantages? I'm not sure. One product was Trigger Point Massage, and they came up with these various tools that were kind of cool. And so, for example, they advertised that this is the best ball that you could use. It's better than a lacrosse ball. It's better than a tennis ball. My personal opinion is the reason I didn't like it was because it wasn't really shaped like a tennis ball or anything. It was shaped more like an egg, and it was supposed to, the fabric was supposed to catch on to the clothing or the skin, whereas like a golf baseball or something like that would roll away and you'd slip. So the texture was fine, but the only thing is where the stitching came in, there was always this bump, and if you roll over it, it just felt like it wasn't a continuous circle when you rolled over it. Also, they came up with specific products for different parts of the body. So for example, this was called the footballer, and what you were supposed to do is roll your calf on it on a piece of foam. Now, I'm fairly thin, and at the time when I bought this, I'm heavier now, but when I bought this, I only weighed 130 pounds, but when I put my calf on it, my calf spread apart and would hit the edges of the roller. One of the advantages of this product is that the rollers here were like those inline skating rollers, and it would roll real well. And but the thing is that my calf wouldn't even fit on this. So they had something called the quad roller, a quad baller, and again, it had these wheels on it. You run across here, and this worked quite well for the quads. Again, with the stitching though, every time you would roll it, this one stitching area would hit your muscles funny, and so I stopped using this. I believe the company has changed this and actually uses almost like a PVC pipe type of material. It's more continuous, and it's actually metal, so that you could put it in a freezer and do this while it's cold. So you take it out of the freezer and use it so it applies ice, or what they call in fancy terms cryotherapy, but it's just cold. And you can roll this while it's cold. Now, considering the quads, this was only really used for the quads and the hamstring. Then a company came out and developed this, and this was called the stick, and this was very, very popular for a while. Everybody was using it, and it's very flexible, but it can roll over your muscles, and supposedly you could do it over your clothing, which was an advantage because it just had these rollers here that did it. The one thing I personally didn't like about it was it just didn't feel as though you can get enough firmness in there. So if you're doing a very superficial, just light massage on your quads or your hamstrings or calves or something like that, this is what it was used for. A lot of times people will use foam rollers, and foam rollers are very useful for certain things. They're useful for IT band syndrome or iliotibial band syndrome, and they're also useful as a chiropractor for the middle back to help people get extension. So there are white foam rollers and there are black foam rollers. The white ones are made of a certain foam that's kind of squishy, whereas the black foam rollers are made of a different type of foam, and they're a little bit more firm. And so if you're just new to foam rolling, then I would get a softer one first, get used to it, and then if you need firmer pressure, go to the black one. The one disadvantage of the black one, though, is if it's used on the middle back, it tends to be too firm. It tends to be too firm. And so that's why I like using the white one for patients, because it gives a little cushion to what are called the spinous processes. Now, having said that, particularly with the spine, I read this in a cycling website from Steve Hogg. There's a guy in Australia, a bike fitter in Australia, who seemed to have solved this whole dilemma with the middle back quite easily. And he said to take 2 tennis balls and just put them in an old sock. So you just take a rubber band, tie it right here, and the middle back, where your spinous processes are, the bumps in your spine, would fit in that little groove, and both sides of the tennis ball would massage the middle back muscles. So I found that quite useful, and it's a lot less expensive than getting another foam roller. Now, very similar to the stick, there's other products that come out that have these little grooves, and they're supposed to be able to remove your fat and all these things. So what I've found that works quite well is just a simple piece of wood. This is a very thin dowel. It has no bending, of course. So the one disadvantage of this is that you do have to put it directly on the skin, in theory, and you just put some skin lotion on the quads or the hamstrings or the calves, and you just rub the muscle. And it actually, this is kind of my favorite way to do it. There are Graston tools and things, but most people are not going to be buying those things. There are knockoff Graston tools that are sold on the market, and you can buy them now. I wouldn't really use those unless you know what you're doing with them. So, but if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to get in contact with me, my website is www.camarillachiro.com. And if you have any questions or comments, just leave them below, and I will read the comments and I will answer them. And if you want to subscribe to my channel and learn more about our office, just go ahead and hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.